Good evening. Good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting for Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. Roll call, please.
Adams.
Here.
Blendy.
Here.
Brownfield. Butler.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
McIntyre. Smith. And Stevens.
Here.
Please rise for pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do not have any remote attendance this evening, so we'll move on to audience comments. If anybody care to address the council. At this time, if we could review the agenda, that would be deletions or additions for discussion items only.
Mayor,
Mr. Blundy.
I'd like to ask for item I to be removed from the consent agenda and placed immediately after the consent agenda.
Okay. Anything else?
For a second. Is there a second?
Don't need it. Don't need it, right? Item 7, the consent agenda would be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H.
Motion to approve.
Ms. Stevens, motion. Second by Mr. Martin. Any questions or comments? Please vote. I'm not seeing anything.
Five. There's 5 tonight? You don't see it on anything?
Should be 6.
It's 5.
Oh, there is 5?
You don't see it on your screen yet?
I don't see anything on it. Is it 5-0?
It is.
Okay, motion passes. On to item A. John, you want to take that?
It would be the I for
The ice, yeah.
City Hall.
Dennis, you want to speak to that?
This item was in front of council at last Monday's Committee of the Whole with a 6-2 vote for direction to move forward by placing this on the agenda. So the City Hall window replacement is in front of you for a quote with Crawford and Brinkman in the amount of $17,537.04.
I move to approve.
Mr. Butler, motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Adams. Questions
Mayor.
or comments?
Mayor,
Yes.
I had some follow-up questions about this particular item. So I guess one, Dennis, could you help us understand, and maybe it was discussed at the Committee of the Whole, but I don't seem to recall exactly, what was the process, I guess, for procuring these quotes, or how did you get these?
We reached out to 3 window and siding installers and asked for the quotes to replace the 8 windows on the front side of the building, as well as subsequently a second quote to replace the windows on the south or on the north F. Of those, 1 returned a quote. I'd followed up with the other 2 multiple times. They had supplied a quote in the last fiscal year, but they did not reply this year with an actual quote. They did say, we'll get one to you, but they never got it back to me. And since I only had 1, I reached out to the contractor who has been doing most of the renovating work in the past at City Hall. They gave me a quote. They did let me know that they cannot be as competitive as window replacement companies on vinyl windows, just based off of that's what window companies do. So they said they would supply a quote for aluminum clad windows, but not vinyl. So we have 1 quote in front of you for $17,537.04, and we're looking for approval.
So when you reached out for him for the quotes, I mean, was it a written request to him? Was it a phone call? How did you go about that?
I have emailed and phone call.
Okay. And then, so I guess, looking at the procurement policy, I mean, it does very clearly state that $15,000 is the limit for sealed bids. So I guess when you were going to gather this information, was there any estimating that was done prior to know whether or not we would need a sealed bid?
We have the quotes that were given us for all of the windows, and not just the larger ones. So no, there was no way for me to know that it was not going to be less than 15,000 beforehand. So that is why I did come to council and ask for permission to waive that. And with a 6-2 vote, council supported moving a quote here and not doing sealed bid.
Yeah, I mean, to me, personally, I don't have an issue with replacing the windows. I see it was found in the budget document there, where that's in there. What I do struggle with, though, is, I guess, procuring these, you know, in the fashion we're doing it. Because to me, the sealed bid policy that's in place, that is there for really maintaining the integrity of the process, right? And making sure that it's fair and transparent. I don't see a need that this is like an emergency expense that we need to go rush out and do this. So to me, it makes sense to follow the procurement policy as it's documented. And then if council, I mean, if we decide to change that, great, we could do that later. But given what we know about this, it doesn't make sense to, in my mind, to skip the procurement policy and say we required sealed bids. Because I guess the other concern I have here too is just with that is, so on this agenda item, there are no bids provided. And so I think, again, to me, trying to be transparent with the public, I think that the bids should be on here so we can actually see them. And so anybody then in the public, then they could come out, open this item up, see there's the bids and the quotes that came in. Without them, I think, again, it ties back to being that transparent and being able to show that this is a very open, fair, you know, process to go through. So I would struggle to support this. Again, I have no issue with saying go ahead and get windows, but the way we're trying to procure these, I don't agree with. I think we need to follow the policy.
Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Stevens?
You know, Dennis, twice you've said like votes of 6-2. You know, at committee of the whole meetings, there are no votes taken. It's a consensus or whatever, but sometimes when you hear things for the first time and then you go back and you do some research, or maybe even the second time, that doesn't mean you're going to vote the same way you had thought you were going to vote when you've heard something in the previously. So I went back to when Ray brought this current procurement policy to the council, and that was in July of 2019. And at that time, you weren't here. Brian, you might have been working, but you weren't. It was Public Works Manager was Kevin Shoney. Public Works Director was Ed Andrews. The City Treasurer was Ellen Dingledine. The City Clerk was Pat Brown. And the only council people that remain on the council are Adams, Brownfield, Butler, and myself. And Ray writes very clearly in his memo to the council that the quotes in the bidding process had been confusing, and he believes the process has been inconsistently applied. There was a reason why he did this, and I do firmly believe that we need to stick to the policy. This isn't an emergency. I know it's bad time because it's winter, we could put plastic on the windows or whatever, but I think we're really setting a dangerous precedent by not following the current policy that we have. And then in the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting, and this is a part that I want to stress to everybody who's sitting here who's going to vote. The proposed policy is standardized and creating forms and consistency that everyone will use. It's very important for everybody to know the same page that we're on. We should be on the same page. So again, like, I'm all for the windows, but I cannot vote yes for this because we need to follow the policy.
Anyone else?
Mayor.
Mr. Adams?
Just a couple things from my end. I guess number one, I don't know why we have committee of the whole meetings anymore if we have to continue to have the same conversation at every single meeting. We went through this, you're right, we don't take a vote, but it was pretty clear when we went around the table what the direction was, so I'm not sure why it's being, rehashed again tonight, number one. Number two, there's lots of things, like some of us sitting up here when we started at council, there was still something on the books that if you spit on the sidewalk, you could get a fine. So if someone roguely had issued a ticket for that, would we say, well, it's in black and white, we got to stand by the policy? Some things make sense, right? And I think when something makes sense, it's okay. It's $2,500 difference, okay, above the procurement policy. Now, $2,500 is a big deal. When we want to do an appraisal that we aren't budgeted for on property that we don't know what we're going to do with, then $2,500 is no big deal. So we can't pick and choose when something is important or when it's not. Same sort of scenario, we have people who sit and say, well, this wasn't in the budget, why can we do it? Why are we buying A, B, or C? Unless we agree with the thing we're buying, then we don't argue that it wasn't in the budget. So we can't pick and choose to make it fit our narrative at the exact moment. I can't believe we're still talking about this. I thought it was done after last week. We need to move forward.
Anyone else?
Mayor?
Mr. Martin.
In the original writing for this policy, does it say the amount? City councilors? So it was 15,000 in the original in 2019, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so even normal inflation takes you above that. So it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for that to be higher. I don't mind keeping it the same just for oversight, but at the time that staff brings something to us, we should not be over the top. Because when you sought out these bids, you were just doing multiple windows, right? Different windows?
Yes, I was looking for the larger windows up front as well as the windows in the back.
Yeah.
In all honesty, if council would have said no to the 17.5, City Hall would have had 7 windows replaced for under $15,000. And then we would have gotten the next one in the next budget cycle.
Mr. Mayor?
Hang on one second. So I think this was done absolutely right. They got quotes for this. This one was over, so we brought it to council, see if we want to just approve it, or if we wanted to do the bid, give us the opportunity to say what we wanted to say. I don't think there was anything that has anything to do with not being open and forthright. So I think it's a little weird to say those words. So again, I think this is not a big deal. I'm glad you brought it forward. I think it's no big deal. I think we should move forward.
Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Stevens.
I guess it's the process. Dennis, I think it would have been great had you brought this, we need to raise this procurement policy, because I do think $15,000 for this day and age is low. A lot of things have happened since 2019. But again, I still go back to this policy isn't that old. It's 2019, what? It's not that old. So I think the process should have been, we raise this, and then we never would have had this angst about it.
Staff has never really looked at wanting to raise it. That has never been any staff member's thought process. A council member brought that up at the committee of the whole to discuss. I do feel like 15,000 is a little low, but at the same time, I feel like there's open enough conversation that if something were to exceed it on something that's a very material possession like this, that staff is more than willing to bring it to council's attention, and something like that would be fine to waive. If this was a construction project where there was a multitude of items and not just a 2-pane window, then I could see there being a bigger need for a sealed bid. But largely, this is a very straightforward. We have these 8 windows. We need these 8 windows. They're all the same size. They're all the same cladding. They're all the same shape. It's a very simple thing. So even not having essentially a bid tab in it, we have 8 windows, $17,537.04. That would be that price divided by that number of windows, and that would be the item that the the public would be able to see. So staff didn't feel like there was a transparency issue here because it's just 8 windows for that cost. It's not a very complex project. It's a very simple, straightforward material project. So that would be the reason why we were asking for the removal of the need for sealed bids. It would take me longer to put together a set of sealed bid documents that would then be scrutinized by every one of those companies who would then be asking me for changes and little shifts to match their different windows that are all practically the same, just have different names. The amount of time and effort that would require is well worth more than $2,537.04.
Well, my point exactly, had this been brought forth to raise the procurement policy, then we wouldn't have had this other situation here. But we're going right back to where Ray wrote, the process has been inconsistently applied. And again, it's like, that really frustrates me.
Mayor,
Mr. Adams.
it has been consistently applied since 2019. This is one exception that was being brought forward because of the need for windows that were budgeted for, and actually, this is well below the budgeted item. So I like what Dennis said, they didn't come, before and say, hey, staff wants $25,000 per, right? I mean, I've seen comments out on social media like, well, gosh, I mean, why, Alderperson McIntyre said it should be more. I don't know that we need to be extending more during this time of, we need to be fiscally responsible. So Dennis did what he should have done. He got bids, they were a little bit higher. Hey, can we go through with this? That makes it, again, there's policies and there's common sense, and there are times that they can both work together.
Anyone else?
Yes, please.
Mr. Butler.
Yeah, I believe everything was done properly here, especially the fact that Dennis recognized that this is above the $15,000 figure, so he brought it directly to us, explained it very well. I think the reality would be if I was a company that had this bid for this amount, and now knowing with this memo that the only other bid is significantly higher, and now I go back for a sealed bid, if I'm the company with the low bid, I would raise it, because I know I still get the job. It's going to cost us money to go out with to get sealed bids, and we probably won't get the same bid from what's our only real bidder right now. So I think this is a waste of time. Everything's done properly. I think we have a great staff, and I have great confidence in what they do, and I'm ready to move on.
Okay, we'll go ahead and cast our vote. I'm not seeing anything.
I can see it, Mayor. We have 3 yeses and 2 nos. The 2 nos are Alderperson Stevens and Alderperson Blendy.
And motion carries. City Administrator portion, council report, John Oliphant.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I turn it over to Chief McCoy to offer any remarks on the Washington PD crime comparison for the last couple of years, are there any questions or comments regarding the council report?
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Stevens.
So I guess this is for Chief McCoy, too. I noticed in the public safety section, the second bullet point, the ice rescue. Do we do this now? Do we have officers carry equipment to enable hasty response? Have we done anything yet?
We do. They're all trained.
And the fire department, it's a dual, I know they do ice rescues, so can you explain all this?
I can't explain the fire department's part of it. I can explain that all the police officers were trained in the fire and in the water rescue, conducted by Mike Johnson, who used to be the Park District, Pekin Park District chief, probably one of the most well-respected instructors in the state of Illinois. Instructed all our guys, and we have all the equipment in the cars for ice rescue if we need it.
Okay, now this is gonna sound like a silly question, but now aren't body cameras supposed to be worn What happens with that? Or are they waterproof?
I hope nobody jumps in the water with their body camera on. No, I don't think so.
That's why I wondered about the fire department, because
I can't tell you about their policy for water rescue.
If there's nothing else, I'll leave the chief to talk about anything regarding the PD crime comparison for 23 and 24.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. I was asked to give a comparison between 2023 and 2024 crime statistics, and I did that. Each of you received the year-to-date report, which compared 23 and 24, but I'd like to summarize it for everyone. In comparison, the crime report has the stats that shows the investigations and the police department, what they've done. In the comparison report, you'll find 12 categories that reflect offenses, citations, accidents, and positive community contacts, all defined under the description notes section. In 10 of the 12 categories, crime was down in 2024. In Part 2 offenses, which are crimes such as criminal damage to property, thefts under $500, disorderly conduct, etc., considered minor crimes, Washington had 803 more in 2024 than in 2023. A large number of that increase was due to the calls from Walmart. In drug offenses, Washington increased by 57 arrests in 2024 as compared to 55 in 2023. In all other 10 categories, crime was down. Especially to be noted is that personal injury accidents and property damage accidents decreased in both categories, and warnings to citations to citizens with warnings were down by 512. And that lets me know that our attention to distracted driving is paying positive dividends in the city. In the category other officer-initiated activities, contacts with the public were up 260 in 2024 from the number in 2023. This represents a large number of calls for service that did not rise to the level of a report, but did require a great deal of officer time. The investigation unit, comprised of Sergeant Steve Smith and Detective Steve Hinken, 108 investigations across various types of criminal activity was conducted. The most frequent investigated cases were sex offenses, with 38 incidents requiring significant resources. Financial crimes accounted for 31 investigations, followed by 21 cases of felony theft and retail theft, felony theft offenses. Burglaries ranked fourth with 11 cases in both residential and commercial property. Also, 5 death cases were investigated. In addition, the investigation unit conducted several cases through Homeland Security, resulting in 5 individuals charged in federal court and 3 in state court. Over 100 forensic examinations and 8 background cases were conducted. These cases did not include SWAT callouts, rescue team operations for covert missions, and a detail at the Democratic National Convention. The Washington Police Department had a very busy but highly productive year in 2024. There is no financial impact and no action required with this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. If there's no other questions or comments, we'll move on to the one resolution we have this evening. By synopsis, approval of this resolution would approve use of motor fuel tax funds and fulfill Illinois Department of Transportation's requirement for general maintenance. By title, IDOT Resolution for Maintenance.
Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Adams, motion. Second by Mr. Butler. Any questions or comments? Cast your vote. I still don't have anything on my screen.
Mayor, it was unanimous.
A unanimous motion carries.
We have one first reading ordinance this evening. Synopsis. Approval of this ordinance would impose term limits for the elected offices of alderpersons and the mayor. By title, first reading ordinance, amending code to provide term limits for alderpersons and mayor. That is all I have this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Alderperson's comments.
Mayor,
Mr. Blundy.
just a question about, tomorrow, the open house event will be, held for, the amphitheater. Last week, there was discussion about the questions that were asked there and then answered would be recorded and provided to council in a report. So can you just help me understand, what is the process for that tomorrow? How are those going to be captured? And is it going to be, like there's going to be like a single file line, people are going to have to wait and ask questions so they can be recorded and answered? Or what is the process going to be tomorrow for capturing that information?
I'm assuming the different groups that will be here will put a list together and submit it to the council.
So, are they aware of that that's a request to capture the questions and write the answers down?
Yeah,
Who those other
I
groups
think
are?
they did a question and answer sometime last week, didn't they? A whole group of them, I believe.
I certainly don't know the exact format, but I know they will have comment cards for people to offer questions that they're not able to make in person. But I do not know as to the specifics as to how questions and answers will be recorded and transcribed.
Okay. I guess that brings a little concern to me. Again, last week, it seemed like it was, that there was definitely going to be a method for doing that. And so I'm, I guess, just concerned that tomorrow, questions will be asked and answers won't be captured, since we're not exactly sure, less than 24 hours into this, or before the event, I guess we'll see how it goes.
Mayor?
Mr. Adams.
I did have one thing that I wanted to mention. I wanted to congratulate Jessica Wentz from Lincoln Grade School, District 52. She was awarded the National Milken Educator Award, first person in District 52 history, so quite a achievement. So wanted to make sure that that was on the record and congratulate her for that.
That was an exciting day at Lincoln Grade School. Chief and I had an opportunity to attend, and Jessica didn't know it. The superintendent didn't know it. They knew there was some type of an award coming, so it was quite a shock to Jessica and her family. Anyone else? Move to go in executive session to consider the employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees in compliance with 5 ILCS 120/2C1. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Butler, motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Adams. And I assume we will cast a vote for the move into executive session.
Mayor, it was unanimous.
And motion carries. We will go, and there's no action coming out.